Boys and girls, do I have something special for you today? This is a bit of a departure from our normal vids, as it will be a three-part series, with this being part one of an entire tip-to-tail install of our hydraulic e-brake kit for your Z33 350z and or Z34 and 370z. Now this episode is going to specifically tackle the e-brake kit as well as the handle and remote mount bracket. This would be way too long of an episode if it were one, so here we go with part one of a three-part series. Now, Zach is currently overlanding over land in some remote mountain somewhere, so no box shimmy for you yet again. I know, disappointing. Anywho, here's a sweet-ass pan to tide you over in the meantime. Speaking of pans, here's what you get in the box. Starting with the handle. These units come in quite a few different flavors to complement your individual styles perfectly. For this video, we chose black like my soul. Next up, you get the little Hito version of our rose joints, giving the e-brake handle freedom to be yanked at many angles. Next are the two inserts that secure the handle to the cage and allow it to pivot without rattling around. Then you get a fresh Wilwood 260/26/36 with built-in reservoir, because ain't nobody got time to remote mount stuff. This has been our go-to for e-brake shiz for many years now. It's tried, trusted, and true, and has a special place in our hearts. We love you, 2636. Now if you're using the Gktech line kit, you can send the gold fittings shown here into orbit like Zach just did to alleviate any confusion. If you use another line kit, however, you may need it, so re-enter that thing through the atmosphere and get it back. The choice is yours. Next up is the handle cage itself. This is what the handle and the master bolt to, then that gets secured to the chassis. The bottom bracket is optional depending on how you install it, giving you extra rigidity if you mount straight to your trans tunnel without our bracket. If you do use our bracket, however, you won't need this piece, which I'll explain here in a bit. Next up is the hardware. The two bolts we're currently lifting up to the screen have nylock nuts. A long boy goes through the cage, upper hole, and bushings into the handle. Then the smaller one goes through the bottom hole of the handle and into the heim. The other small boys meld the master to the cage, and last up is the e-brake mount itself. Now, this is optional, as some hot boys choose to mount the cage via molten metal compression techniques. If you cannot weld or want this process to be reversible, you can get one of these brackets in your life to make this a truly bolt-on affair. All you need to do is add it to your combo whilst checking out on the website. This mounts the cage assembly to the chassis of your whip and comes with some roundly elongated holes to get that yank angle dialed in perfectly. Now these brackets also come in different styles, such as mounting to the left or right of the transmission tunnel or in the center console for that super clean I don't have an e-brake but I have an e-brake look. Last up on our longest unboxing video ever shown is the 4 bolts to clamp the handbrake mount down to the tunnel. Now that I've run out of voice, it's time to finally move on to getting this thing installed into the car. So let's kick things off by not installing it onto the car and keeping it on the bench, getting some pre-production work out of the way. Now go ahead and get your cage naked. Yes, it consented. And remove the under bracket, since we are mounting it directly to our bracket and not the transmission tunnel. Send that sucker into orbit to hang out with the gold fitting from earlier, then grab your bracket and peep the red hot slots we put in for your yanking pleasure. Slide the cage into the top, slip the bolts through the top as well, flip earthing over, then install the washers and nuts on all 4 bolts. Secure the bolts from the top with your ever handy Allen key and a wrench and crisscross pattern them down to ensure an even squash. Now if you've already decided your yank angle, go ahead and proceed to torque to the specs shown right here on the screen. If not, leave them a bit loose for later. Moving right along, go ahead and palm your master cylinder and remove the boot extension graciously supplied by Wilwood, as we won't be needing it. Then grab your nuts and or bolts and washers and bolt the master to the bracket itself. Tighten, then torque down to the settings shown here. Next, grab your yank stick and the small rose joint and slip it into the bottom of the handle. Place 2 washers on the outside and pop the bolt through, attaining the following torque speckage. Go ahead and spin the handle onto the master, then insert the inserts into the upper hole, slipping the entire assembly into the cage. Then grab the long boy bolt, 2 washers, and the locking nut and tighten it down, then torque to these specs shown here as well. Now in regards to the push rod length, we threaded ours into the middle. This will adjust the handle's position vertically and can be adjusted to your liking at a later date, because hey, maybe you've got T-Rex arms or condor-sized wings. The choice is yours. Once decided, tighten the lock nut with a wrench. Wow, it's finally time to install the thing I've been talking about installing for 5 minutes already. Start by removing your old shift knob, then pop off the shifter surround, unclipping the harness that resides there. Loosen and remove the 2 screws that hold the center console onto the front, then pop over to the rear of the center console and remove those screws as well. Unplug the remaining wire harnesses and get the center console out of the way for now. Next, loosen and remove all 4 shifter surround bracket bolts, then get that and the shifter boot off the car for now. Grab that shifter boot you just took off and put it back over the top of the shifter. Our bracket is designed to replace the shifter boot bracket, so slip the new one over the boot and install the 4 supplied bolts. Tighten all 4 of the bolts and torque down to the specs shown here. Next up, reinstall the center console by plugging all the electrical connectors back in, popping in the front screws as well as the ones in the rear. Float the shifter insulation made from pure Santa's beard on lovingly. Then go ahead and clip the wiring connector and pop in the shifter surround, finishing everything off by threading on the Gktech knob you may or may not have added to cart earlier. And once you've gotten that on, you're done with part 1 of the 3-part series of installing this entire kit. Congrats on making it through 6 minutes of me rambling about our legendary bolt-on hydro kit. Would you just look at how beautiful this thing looks installed there? When you're ready to install the lines and or the rest of the dual caliper kit, hit us up. We'll be here on the internet, just like on this end screen, showcasing the various things us dudes here at Gktech are into. If you can't install these, please have your pro watch these videos first so they can charge you for it accordingly. If you have any questions, we may or may not have answers, but we probably do. This has been Officer Dan, Johnny Caps, and Walkabout Zach with another Gktech How To. Peace.